I am very, very fortunate today to be with Subnum Hariff, who is a manager here in Bolton in the Library Services Department. She's my colleague on the board of the Museums, Libraries and Archives Council. And Subnum herself was born in Bolton, but her parents come from India. She has been very, very influential in engaging with the local Indian community and getting them to take an interest in the work of this sector and actually helping with projects. So Subnum, tell us a little bit about your job.
Okay, so I'm Partnership and Access Manager here for Bolton Library and Museum Service. And my remit is really looking at the children and young people's offer, so in terms of both formal learning but informal as well, because libraries and museums are a place where, that can be seen as having value for educational reasons, but also in terms of non-educational, so in terms of a space that's magical for discovery, for inspiration, raising aspirations, but also kind of a safe community place where people can meet.
So Indian culture is quite complex, and Indian history also is quite complex. There are different faiths, different migration histories, different communities. A lot of people don't understand that India actually is not one country, but it's actually many countries together. How do you use your work to make people aware about the differences, and how do you reach out into these different communities?
Well, really through the services that we provide. I mean, the key thing about being a successful library museum service is that we've got to cater to the local community. So if we don't consult with the local community, we're not going to know what their needs are. So that's kind of a really big key aspect of the work that we do. So outreach work is a big part of the work that we do. So just for example, a couple of years ago when we were demolishing and rebuilding one of our local libraries, which was predominantly serving an ethnic minority community, in terms of consulting with that community, we thought about doing that in an innovative way, and we used arts as a way to communicate with those communities because of language barriers, but also there was a high percentage of the users of that library were children and young people. So again, we just didn't want to use a normal format of questionnaires. We wanted to engage with them in a really meaningful way. So we used arts, and we used lots of different artists that worked with different ages within those communities. So we had an artist that worked with the Asian elder community and used kind of coconuts, which are quite significant to the Indian community in terms of their faith, and used that as a kind of form to communicate with them. And we got quite a lot out of that process. And similarly, we worked very closely with partners, because we can't, reach out to these communities unless we link with the faith leaders, link with community leaders. So we worked very closely with the youth service to get young boys involved in shaping the library service for us, and what would they want out of the library service. Because we find there are certain sections of the community that don't use us as much as they can. So outreach is a big part of the work. So that's kind of from a library's point of view. And again, with museums, we do quite a lot of outreach work. We're working very closely. Sam, who's one of the members of my team, who's our outreach access officer, does a lot of work with the Bolton Hindu Forum and the Bolton Council of Mosques, who we're going to meet later on today. So again, working with those community groups and bringing them into museums and putting on exhibitions, that they can then come in and see significance, that the museum has some value to their communities.
How would you say, being an Indian working in this sector and having your own history, your cultural background, your strong community link, how has that made a difference to the work that we do here, bringing that skill set into the work?
Well, it's interesting because when I first, if I can just talk about how I came into libraries, I was a user of the library service before I first started working in them, and I used my local library, High Street Library, which was a fantastic space. The staff there was so welcoming. It was kind of a fun place. It didn't have this kind of traditional stereotype that you might associate with libraries being quiet spaces that you're not allowed to talk. It was fun, it was vibrant. And so my first interaction with libraries was using it as a child, which kind of got me interested in working in libraries. And when I first started working in libraries, I didn't see that being an Indian Muslim had any kind of relevance to what I was doing. I just wanted to work in libraries and work with with the communities and bring them into libraries. But as I've kind of climbed the ladder, if you like, I'm very conscious that, hopefully being in a prominent position within libraries is raising the profile of the cultural sector within Indian communities, because traditionally Indian communities look at sort of doctors or accountants as kind of professions that they place high value on, but not necessarily the cultural sector. So in terms of having a high profile position within libraries, I feel that connecting with communities and raising the profile of libraries is something that I'm very passionate about.
And what would your advice be to young people considering a career in the culture sector? That there are vast opportunities.
Absolutely. That don't take anything for granted. Don't pander to the stereotypes that are out there. Come and have a look behind the scenes, what's happening in libraries. And I think we're making strides with that. As I mentioned, we're working with the communities, but we've also launched a couple of years ago our Young Library Volunteer Programme. And we launched that with our High Street Library and we worked with Indian communities there. But when we've widened that out, we've actually found that lots of our volunteers actually are coming from the sort of BME communities. And subsequently we've had two of our young girls that started volunteering with us in 2007 and are actually working with the library service now as Saturday assistants. And similarly a project that the museum did with an Asian group of young girls. One of the girls was working for the museum on a Saturday as well. So slowly I think we're making those inroads into widening up the cultural offer by welcoming people in, consulting with them, showing them the other side of what happens kind of behind the scenes. And the reason why I'm still in this job is because it really is so varied. On a day-to-day basis, my job is quite diverse, and I meet people. We work, like I mentioned, in partnership with lots of different organisations, and I get to meet people with a whole range of skills and expertise and passion for the sector.
We have in the Indian community in Britain an aging population and also a lot of professionals about to retire who are looking to use their skills and intelligence, not necessarily in another job, but as a volunteer. So how would you attract them to this sector? What would you say about working as volunteers for that generation with the heritage sector generally?
Well, just that you get a lot out of, it's something that they gain from working with us as well as what we gain. So we gain the kind of insight, their passion, their knowledge in helping us shape the service so that it stays relevant for the communities for the future. But also in terms of volunteers working with our library and museum service, it's about what we can give them as well. So we try to accredit a lot of our programmes so that they will gain accreditation for the volunteering that they do. But it's much more than that. Hopefully they will be inspired, will learn new skills, they get to meet new people. So they're building on their social skills as well as sort of the educational and practical skills that they'll gain from their experience. And again, what we've done with our volunteer programme is we've again listened to what they want to do. So we've not said, this is what our offer is, you can come and do this. We've worked very closely with the young people to say, if you were working for the library as a volunteer, what is it that you want to gain from it, and what are the kind of roles that you'd be interested in. So it's a developing process, and we're getting better at it.
I mean, one of the things we are seeing in this Masala tour is the huge amount of Indian community development all over the country, especially in terms of faith spaces and community spaces. Beautiful buildings and architecture and all that. However, what we also see is most of these places have no links with the professional heritage sector, whether it be museums, libraries, etc. And in a way, it's a shame because that link could really open the door to making their culture and their tradition more accessible, understandable, visitor-friendly, etc., etc. But the communities do not realize that there is this huge professional talent that is in this country, and that by working alongside this talent, that they can actually get funding to organize educational events at their community centers, They can also get these professionals advising them about how to make their culture more understandable, and as a result it's win-win for everyone, for visitors to these community places, it's for the young people getting interested and aware about their culture, and for the connection between those community places and the wider cities in which they live and work. So what would your advice be to them?
Well, in terms of the Bolton Library Museum Service, you know, we are working in partnership with schools, faith and community groups that we've talked about. So we've done a couple of projects with the Bolton Council of Mosques, where we've worked with those communities and we've got additional funding in, and we've done exhibitions within the museums. And for example, we're working with the Gypsy, Roma and travelling community as well, and they've put in a bid to the HLF, which we've supported, and subsequently they've got. So we are working with different faith and different communities to try and partner with them to get them to understand what we can offer, and working with those communities to see how we can develop our service as well. So I think that the partnerships are there. It's keeping that sustainable model, and it's all about building relationships at the end of the day, and having key people that have the skills to do that and nurture those relationships, you know, which is something that we're very dedicated and passionate about doing.
Fantastic. Last point, one of the aims of the Masala tour is to make Britain aware of the wisdom of India, and especially the values which India brings to this country, whether it be strong family values, strong community values, faith which is bringing mental peace and mental health throughout the community, yoga and meditation which is helping build physical health, food and diet which is a major part of any person's healthy lifestyle, and the Indian culture and tradition have very good habits about that. Now what we want is for these wisdoms to trickle through into the larger community of Britain, because we are citizens of this country. We are concerned about the serious problems this country is facing in terms of economic success, health, family breakdown, community, etc. Right? What are you doing as an Indian working in the heritage sector to make this wisdom accessible to policymakers and understandable outside these communities, so that we can play a positive role in building a better Britain?
I think we try to celebrate Indian culture through literature. Of course, we have lots of Asian authors, and we try to put on events that not just appeal to the Indian market but is accessible for everybody. So we've had authors like Nurinder Dami, Bali Rai, Monica Ali, and interestingly, when Monica Ali came to speak, you know, the audience was predominantly white because, of course, of the success of her book. So it's making sure that access to that kind of culture is out there for everybody. And we have quite a diverse range of events, programs that we put on in our libraries. You know, so we've had things like Bollywood dancing, Bollywood exercise, the story of Diwali through Indian classical dance, henna painting, qawwalis, ghazals. So we've had, you know, we try to build in within our services, kind of celebrating the Indian culture. But also in terms of myself, you know, I've been very lucky that my organisation has supported me in developing my leadership skills. So they supported me through the Pro Leadership Programme and also the MLA Board Secondment Scheme. So I think that kind of investment within staff and promoting and making sure that we're kind of in high profile positions means that kind of at that policy and strategic level that we can have that input. Here in Zakaria Masjid, which is the central mosque in Bolton, and we're currently in the Islamic Lending Library, which I helped set up. The library is completely reliant on volunteers to run it, so we have a dedicated group of volunteers that run it. It's a fantastic resource. It's open to all the communities, not just the Muslim community, to help people understand what Islam is all about, and it's the first lending Islamic library within a mosque setting within the UK, I think I can claim. It's a fantastic resource, as I've mentioned. We have lots of school visits, lots of children, young people can come and borrow the resources and interact with the resources here.